A disclaimer before this video, this is just my opinion on these characters and shows. I am not a movie critic, nor do I have special training in cinematography, but I enjoy analyzing movies and TV shows as a hobby, and I thought it would be fun and interesting to share my opinion on main characters with you guys. So, main characters, am I right? You see them everywhere, from movies to TV shows, from kids media to anime. They can be singular or part of a bigger ensemble, like how Ted is the main character of How I Met Your Mother, but the show is about his friend group as a whole. Do you ever watch a movie and think, my god, the main characters of this movie is just so bad? Because I do, and I think there are a bunch of reasons why this happens so often. It can be taken from genre to genre, since every type of media has their own flaws and especially their own cliches, but I will try to be as general as possible in this video. For some reason, making unsympathetic characters with no good reasons as to why they are the way they are and no development at all has become a huge trend. I feel like a lot of times writers don't realize that their characters act mean or selfish, because the way these shows are written means that you have to root for that character, but when you objectively look at what that character is doing, you notice that they're not exactly in the right. There are so many protagonists that I can fit into this category, but I'm going to take 3 big examples of these type of characters from 3 different types of media and compare them to 3 great protagonists from similar media. Let's start with the big guns first. Emily is one of my least favorite main characters in the whole world. She is rude, petty, she acts like a spoiled child and makes a big deal out of very little problems. She sleeps with her supposed best friend's boyfriend and lies to her about it, and also sleeps with the same woman's underage brother while she's a 29-year-old woman. She acts entitled and thinks that the people in France are dumber and meaner than her, that their ways of doing things are inherently wrong, and that she needs to Americanize their workplace, while she herself doesn't know the tiniest bit of French and treats the city and its culture like her amusement park, instead of trying to fit in with the people there. Not to mention, the French company was promised a woman who knows a lot about fashion and who speaks fluent French to work with them, while all they got is an unprofessional girl who doesn't show the tiniest bit of respect for their work. A character like this is fine if the show presents her as being in the wrong, but the problem is that she never faces any consequences for her actions. The show always tries to make you empathize with her and always encourages you to support her, even when she's clearly in the wrong. The fact that she slept with an underage boy is literally an ongoing joke in the show, and when she judges the whole French culture based on a few people she met at her job, who, again, had every right to be disappointed in her, she's the one in the right because they were a little mean to her. And then one of the French characters even states that they treat her like this because they're intimidated by her amazing work ethics. I can't make this shit up. On the other hand, one of the best TV show protagonists I know is Davy from Never Have I Ever, and she is a very unlikable person. She is rude, selfish, entitled, and has clear anger issues. She constantly lies to her friends and her mom, but the difference is that the show knows she's not a likable person and doesn't excuse her actions. Instead, it explains that they came from a place of sadness, fear, and loss, since her father just died the same year, and it completely broke her to the point where she couldn't walk for a few months. Because she wants the hottest guy at school to be her boyfriend, she acts in irresponsible and selfish ways to the people she cares about, so that she doesn't think about the pain she's in. If you add the fact that she's been bullied because of the wheelchair she was in for months, you can see why it's difficult for her to make the right decision for herself and for the people she loves. You can also clearly tell the things she does in order to get Paxton come from a place of insecurity, letting him walk all over her and treat her poorly when they do date in season 2 because she doesn't think she's worth anything more, rejecting the guy who truly loves her and helped her in many occasions, Ben. Another good thing about this character, apart from the fact that unlike Emily, she has clear motivations for acting badly around people, is the fact that the show knows and acknowledges the fact that Davy is not a good person and is not always in the right, even if she is the protagonist of the show. Davy constantly gets into trouble because of her bad behavior and isn't rewarded for it, On the contrary, for a while she loses everything good in her life. Her family, her friends, her frenemy turned boyfriend Ben, and has to put efforts into making amends. The clear difference between the two characters is the lack of awareness that the writers of Emily in Paris have for their main character. I know this might seem like a weird comparison at first, since Batman is more like Iron Man in terms of character and Captain America is more like Superman, but I took these two heroes since they are the lead of two very conceptually similar movies, Batman v Superman and Captain America Civil War. Both movies about two superheroes with different ideologies fighting each other, and both movies clearly have one hero that you're supposed to root for more than the other. So then, why is Batman so unlikable while Captain America is so likable? Let's see. First things first, the motivations of Batman are very convoluted. Like, at the beginning of the movie, it looks like he is mad at Superman for destroying buildings and killing people, while trying to defeat the villain of the last Superman movie. Fair concern that is also reminiscent of what a lot of fans were thinking watching that movie. He'd seen saving people from that building and risking his own life to do so. Very likable superhero behavior so far, right? But the problem is that while the movie continues, Batman does the exact same things that he hated Superman for. He kills people, lots of people. He blows up cars and even buildings. He brands criminals to inspire fear in them, and generally acts like a complete hypocrite. Later on, he states that he hates Superman because he has godlike powers, which are close to impossible to beat if he becomes evil at one point. But that also doesn't make sense because in the same movie, he is seen looking at videos of other superpowered individuals like Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and he doesn't go after any of them. Like, he has a brief conversation with Wonder Woman in which he seems to try to intimidate her, but in the end he completely lets her go pretty unbothered. And yet he still wants to kill Superman. He acts like a complete hypocrite in that whole movie, and by the end of it, he also acts like an absolute idiot, changing his mind about wanting to kill Superman simply because their moms share the same name. That last part was so unintentionally hilarious, it literally became an internet meme. So this character is a hypocrite and a dumbass who murders masses and terrorizes people, and we're supposed to root for him just because his parents died or something? Yeah, that is not gonna happen. And the problem is, the creator of this movie, Zack Snyder, seems to believe that Batman, an iconic comic book character who is known for being a really good guy and having strict rules for not allowing murder to happen, would totally murder tens or even hundreds of people if he has a technical way of doing it or something. He just doesn't realize what an unlikable protagonist he made, and that is a huge issue. On the other hand, Steve is my favorite superhero of all time, and Civil War is probably my favorite superhero movie of all time, apart from maybe the new Spider-Man movie. And that is all because of how brilliant Steve as a character is, and how interesting his conflict with Iron Man is. The biggest difference between the two movies is that Steve is already known as a lovable guy and a good person, since he had like 4 movies before this one, time to develop and grow. This movie presents Steve in a different light. He's more tired than aware of the evil in this world, as well as how complicated morality has become in this century. He is tired of trying to fit in this new world that he never felt like he belonged to. So, when the Sokovian Accords come into play, he refuses to give up his morals and his ideals because of his fear and hatred of the government corruption that came from the movie before this one in his trilogy, The Winter Soldier. And because of all this, he goes against Tony and the government, forming a team of superheroes who believe in his cause, and tries to rescue his brainwashed best friend Bucky, who is a wanted criminal, but who in reality didn't do anything wrong since he was brainwashed and controlled by Hydra at all times. Steve doesn't want to fight Tony because he hates him or wants to kill him or anything like that. They're actually good friends who fought together in many wars. But Steve wants to protect his good friend Bucky because he is the only remaining thing from his past, the only thing that reminds him of the place that he loves the most, with the morals he believes in besides anything. And so he beats Tony up, saves Bucky and the superheroes who followed his side and got put into prison, and the movie ends while you, the viewer, know why this is Steve's movie, why his side of things was deemed right by the movie, and why Steve is a brilliant protagonist. He has his own set of respectable morals that he fights for, he has clear motivations and goals, he's a likable person with a good heart, he's intelligent and hardworking, and he's an all-around great guy. How I Met Your Mother is the latest show I've watched. I know, late to the party. And so I decided to try out a new reboot of it, How I Met Your Father, that follows a very similar format. The only differences being that the main character is a girl instead of a guy, and that the show focuses a lot on dating apps and stuff. But watching it, I couldn't find much similarity in the feeling it gave me, and most of it was because of the characters. No character had any charisma or style, and they just felt like caricatures of what the original cast characters, yet trying to tell a message and have a deeper meaning, while everything about the characters is very surface level. I could talk more about why each character annoys me, but this video is about protagonists, so I'm gonna expand more on Sophie. Sophie isn't to the level of unlikability and awful actions that Emily and Bruce Wayne are, but she also isn't someone that I necessarily like or root for. She's noisy, annoying, and an attention beggar. She isn't an awful person, but she's unlikable because she lacks positive attributes, interesting personality, and she's just very boring and hard to like. In contrast, Ted is likable because he has a lot to his characters, many layers and characteristics that make you interested in him as a person, besides the hopeless romantic in him, which is all Sophie has. And Ted is also so charismatic and has this certain feel to him that can't just be copied and pasted onto another character. It doesn't work that way. Ted is a visionary. He expects a lot from himself and from his life, even becoming a bit of a control freak sometimes, feeling scared of things that he can't control, like his love life, which is why a lot of the story is focused on that. His childhood life was very controlled, his parents not letting the negative things in their life slip through. Thus, when Ted is hit by the real world and the chaotic nature of it, he feels lost and insecure. Sophie is just a female copy of Ted, but lacks the charisma and personality that he has, instead just feeling like an empty shell of a character, with the personality of any rom-com protagonist. Which leads me to my next point. I've noticed this in every media, from high school romances to anime, and it is a huge issue. A lot of movies and shows use a blank slate character that has been made and used so many times before, yet don't update on those tropes and cliches and don't change or improve on them, leaving a very easy to notice laziness in writing and story. I'm going to list a bunch of these cliché main characters and explain what is wrong with them and what can be done better in order to illustrate my point. God, I swear, every single teen movie and show has to have a social reject as the main character, from the 90s classics like 10 Things I Hate About You to modern movies like Tall Girl and The Kissing Booth. To some extent, all of these movies show a social reject, finding love and friendship and things like that. But why not make the movie from the other side of things? Some very interesting movies that I've seen flip these ideas on its head. Most notably, Mean Girls and Heathers are good examples of movies who made the social reject into the most popular girl in school by making the popular girls take an interest in them and making them change themselves to fit the group. The movies had really good social commentary about how these labels and groups are actually kinda meaningless in the bigger picture, how there are good popular girls and bad nerdy girls, so on and so forth. I think more movies and shows should try to obtain that kind of meaningless characterization. Now, for non-anime viewers, this isn't a problem, but this happens way too often in shonen anime, fighting anime, and I have to mention it. It worked for Naruto, but come on, not every shonen protagonist has to be like this. Deku, Natsu, Yui, Tadori, etc. It's come to the point where when I see an anime that doesn't have this kind of protagonist, I'm surprised. My least favorite protagonist of this kind is Deku from My Hero Academia. He's a very popular character from one of the most popular anime out there right now, but I literally can't stand him. He is so painfully boring and basic and uncharismatic. He is so positive and nice to people to an aggravating degree. He's in this paradox where on the surface seems like a strong character since he gets beaten time and time again and still manages to stand up. Yet he also makes a big deal out of unimportant things and acts like a crybaby most of the time, instead of just toughening up and acting like a damn superhero for once. I'm not saying that he has to be emotionless, but my god, can't there be just one episode where he doesn't burst into tears? Plus, besides his annoying personality, there is nothing there. He wants to be a superhero because he thinks heroes are cool. There is no real reason behind it, and his backstory is the most basic idea ever. A boy abandoned by his dad who lives with his mom and gets bullied. Wow, so original. It even ties it into the social reject idea I talked about before. Two unoriginal ideas in one. When I started watching Gintama, I was shocked at how awesome and original the main character is, and I recommend anyone who loves anime to watch that show. It's by far the best anime I have ever seen, with an amazing protagonist and cast of characters. Other recommendations with interesting protagonists would be Noragami and Bungo Stray Dogs, both great action-packed anime. Now this is just every rom-com protagonist ever. I swear, for every decent rom-com protagonist, there are like 30 basic shitty ones. It's insane. Whenever I sit down and try to watch a Christmas movie, it's like I'm watching the same movie I've watched a million times, and I feel like that is all because of the characters. And the problem is, it's like the media has just categorized romance comedy as a stupid genre and stopped trying to make good films. But that's not true. 13 Going on 30 and To All the Boys I've Loved Before are just two examples of good rom-coms that deserve recognition. I think if people actually try to write good rom-coms and put effort into writing and directing these movies, it could be really cute and interesting. When I first started watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I was so pleasantly surprised at how original the main character was. Jake Peralta is just so interesting, charismatic and entertaining. He's a jokester who hates following rules. He's messy and chaotic, and yet also a good person who looks after his friends and cares about being a good cop. He's so funny and likable while also being incredibly memorable and entertaining. Bad writing is a big reason why characters become unlikable, and bad dialogue can lead to not being able to relate to the characters. A lot of writers make the mistake of giving their female characters very woke dialogue that just makes them seem like they have a superiority complex, and instead of making women like me relate to them and look up to them, it just pushes us further away from relating to them. I've seen this happen so many times. Captain Marvel, Charlie's Angels, Supergirl, Batman, etc. Instead of making good characters that just so happen to be women, they write with the purpose of showing off their political views and then think about their character, and it's hurt the potential of many characters. Take for example the huge difference between the likability and smart writing of Wanda in WandaVision versus the boring, unlikable writing of Carol Danvers in Captain Marvel and Endgame. Wanda is such a layered, powerful character because the writers thought about making a good character above everything else, and you can tell in the show. Wanda has so much backstory, personality, and motivation that drives her to make decisions that hurt other people. But she does those things because of how much pain and suffering she has endured, and is now taking revenge on the world for ruining her life over and over again. Carol, on the other hand, constantly makes rude remarks and thinks of herself as superior even in a room filled with powerful people and with lots of experience as superheroes. She barely cares to make a good impression and thinks that they don't deserve much of her respect. In contrast, Wanda tried to fit in with the Avengers multiple times, but their fear of her uncontrollable powers always made her feel different. In WandaVision, she reaches a point that after losing everyone who she thinks truly loves her, she goes insane trying to make a perfect world for herself, in which she feels loved and comfortable. Other shows like Riverdale and Supergirl are absolutely famous for their awful dialogue and characterization, and it's no wonder why. Trying to sit through an entire episode of those shows is like getting hit in the head by a tornado of cringy lines and bad characters. smashed together with bad special effects and the occasional musical. I think in conclusion, good protagonists are made by creators who work with passion, creativity, and awareness. And I think it's important to point out the shows who master awesome characters and those who don't do that well.